Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Singapore FinTech Festival. Kudos to the organisers. Friday morning, I thought these things would be thinning out, but I've had people coming from downtown for this session and just pinging me, which is a pleasant surprise. I'm a bit older than a lot of the people in crypto, but looking out of the industry, we look like we've got some old people here today as well. So please don't ask me about the direction of Coinbase stock or the new incoming presidential regime or anything to do with the price of Bitcoin. This is the technology stage, not the investor stage. And today we're going to take you on a little bit of a journey that I think goes back to, for context, my first visit to Singapore in 1980. My mother was in the textile business in New Zealand and had to come up to trade fairs every year. And at that point in time, a fax machine had just come in to the technological world. And so I think you want to look at this technology as just another part of a long chronology of innovation and something that's truly here to stay. We're seeing enormous adoption on chain, and we want to show you how some of the technologies that we're driving fit into that. A little bit of information about Coinbase. We're not as well known in Asia as we are in North America. And so the mission of Coinbase is to increase economic freedom. And that's particularly relevant to this region, as we'll show on some coming slides as you look at the development of these economies. We are a larger player in the crypto world, but if you look at technology platforms, vis-a-vis Tencent, Meta, etc., we're quite a small player. But Asia's incredibly important to our international journey, and we're going to touch on some of the numbers highlighting that. To the last speaker from Chubb, I think it's important to know that we have quite a strong brand around trust and security, cybersecurity, custody, insurance. We pioneered crypto and digital asset insurance. And so we have a unique place in the ecosystem, and it really dates back to our 12-year journey as a company. And I've been working at Coinbase for nearly 3 years, which seems like a lifetime. So that's kind of 4 lifetimes in a kind of traditional corporate world, if you think about the cycles and the speed at which crypto is moving. Highlights from last week, just some high-level numbers here. I think things that are really exciting in this geography, bring your attention to stable coins in the bottom right. A lot of sessions on this here and a lot of people highlighting what's happening in stable coins. There's some interesting stuff around Straits and Grab and Ant Group relating to Singaporean stablecoin developments. Talking to that trust, we custody 17 of the 20 Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. If anyone's worked in investment banking or traditional finance like I have, going through the RFP or the due diligence for a BlackRock, for example, is hard work. It's 2, it's 3, it's 4 years of compliance and diligence work. And so those are the types of hurdles that we take very, very seriously as a publicly listed company. And again, I think it's something that differentiates us from some of the major Asian players in the space. But this is the region where it's all happening. I think we know Japan is kind of the philosophical home of Bitcoin and the white paper. If you look at this list on the left, this is not only for crypto adoption, but around 1/3 of the world's trading takes place in Asia, and that's quickly usurping Europe. And North America is actually only about 10% of global crypto trading now. So this is really where this is happening. And in terms of the human capital as well, and the developers, product, engineering, design, clearly, huge cohorts in India and China are driving this. And so we're excited to have our engineering hub in Singapore, recently announced a partnership and support from the Economic Development Board. A huge number of our ventures companies are in this geography, and I'll talk to Base and the meetups around the developer community as well. Singapore itself is a savvy place. I think we see that evidence just by the kind of attendance and momentum at this conference year on year as that grows. I think someone just said 60,000 attendees. I was at Token 2049 at Marina Bay Sands with some of my colleagues here, and I'm sure many of you, a couple of months back. And again, that is really a global conference that happens to be based in Singapore. But the appetite for volatility and risk and the demand from investors for yield, I think, is what makes Singapore an incredibly important market for us and why we think it's going to be a leading geography for digital assets going forward, together with the support of the regulators and the government here as well. Going back to my original comment, bookending this around the technological curve, and you think about Moore's Law and other rules that have driven adoption of technology over time, whether it was telephones or faxes or televisions or smartphones. The axis on the top is clearly internet adoption, and the dates on the bottom are crypto adoption. And so from when crypto really took off, probably 17, 18, 19, we're only 6 or 7 years into this journey. So I ask you to kind of take a pause and think about other cycles of smartphones and semiconductors and technology, and just kind of believe that this is still a very, very early first chapter in the journey of digital assets. As a company, our mission is to bring 1 billion people on chain, and so we're about 1/5 of the way there right now. So a lot of runway, and clearly a lot of this adoption is going to happen in the Asian geography where all of these people live, and we saw on that previous adoption slide, that's where it's happening. So how do you understand what is on-chain? Initially, Internet Web 1 was really about reading stuff online on Yahoo and Netscape and very kind of primitive sites now that aren't particularly interactive. You can't pay on them, you can't do much with them. And if you go back to some of the brands back in that day, I actually bought a laptop at Fry's Electronics in New York in my junior year of university, and I'd be surprised who's even been to a Fry's store. Who knows what Fry's is? There's like 3 people here, one of my colleagues. But I think this is where the internet started, and so we talk about that as, read. Web 2, clearly write. And so these sites are becoming a lot more interactive. Users can interact with them. But it was difficult for you in Web 2 to really monetize your content, and that's where the own comes into it. This terminology is a great way to demystify what is a very complex industry, and it's actually coined by a guy, Chris Dixon, who's authored this book, Read, Write, Own. I urge you to look at it, from Andreessen Horowitz. And he's done a much better job of trying to demystify this than me today. But I think it's a great way to look back at seeing where we are today on chain. Now, this has been magnified again by AI, and I've shamelessly taken this information from the founder of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, a blog that he had earlier in the year, talking about the overlap between AI and blockchain. And I think blockchain is really going to help solve a lot of the pretty thorny questions around AI in terms of determining ownership and who has IP rights. And, for example, the cost of technology and being on chain. And so there's actually a lot of solves that come from being on the blockchain that are coming up in these, truly global discussions about where does AI go, the power of AI, who should be owning it. This is a big, complex, geopolitical kind of conversation. And we're beginning to look at some solutions here. And so I urge you to take a look at that blog from Vitalik Buterin if you want to dive into this. But, we're clearly up to our neck in AI with trading bots, our own machine learning teams. I've just come from Bangalore yesterday. And so this is, clearly a long way to run here as well. So what is Base? What is our role in this? If you've been on chain and you've tried to mint things and you're aware of the ups and downs of NFTs and the technical kind of parlance of the industry, you will know that it can actually be incredibly complicated and quite costly. And so we want to make that a lot easier, democratize it, make it accessible. I took my mother-in-law through some applications in a smart wallet recently. We just hosted or helped co-host the Melbourne Marathon a few weeks ago with Nike and IMG, and we were minting digital medals for runners. Now, if someone's just run 42 kilometers or 21 kilometers or 10 Ks in the fun run, I think 5K in the fun run, the last thing they want to do is open their wallet and try to burn a medal. And so we made it a 2-click solution, didn't even need to download a smart wallet, and again, no cost for gas fees because we've got technology that batches these things and sends them en masse. And we're also helping, scale this. So the more it scales, the cheaper the cost to do this. To make this work, you need scale. And so these are some of the numbers of our own blockchain and how it's scaled in recent times. It's really only about 18 months old. It was in a beta phase for about a year or 6 months, and now it's been operational about a year. Probably more important is for developers to have these tools accessible to people and have toolkits, names and Onchain chits, and things that builders can use and monetize and get paid from, be very accessible. And remember, lots of these builders have a day job, they probably have a side hustle, they're probably building at the weekend, and they're used to existing protocols and other software services in the SaaS world, etc., which they've built over time very efficiently. So you don't want to reinvent the wheel here. And Jesse Polak's team has spent a lot of time ensuring these resources are best in class. And so we can onboard lots of people and lots of developers. We've had a big effort in the US to be hosting lots of hackathons, working with lots of large brands. But to date, it's been very US-centric. And we're really bringing it into Asia. And our base team is actually on a world tour right now. And so if you look at use cases here, Stand with Crypto is an advocacy group around voting blocks and making sure representatives in government know that their users want blockchain. We have an event with Stand with Crypto in Melbourne on Monday next week. Open Social, a Hong Kong-based or born business, is very big in the social media space. Onchain, Grab, you all know. I referenced the StraightSex and the Alipay deal. Animoca out of Hong Kong, a very broad gaming portfolio. I'm quite proud that it has links to Australia. And then Virtual's AI agents Onchain out of Malaysia. And so while we've had our history in the US, we're really bringing this to Asia, and we're in DevCon next week. Jesse Polak's team is in India this week. Then they're in Singapore and the Philippines. Delighted to have a full court press at Singapore FinTech Festival. Is the first time we've had a full booth. Colleagues from all over the world with huge depth and human capital in their respective spaces. And it's been very humbling to watch some of their sessions as well. We have an ice cream stand just here where if you are happy to try to go on chain very quickly, we can help you do that. And this is all part of unfreezing the financial system. We think that the traditional financial system is very slow, quite cold, not necessarily helping its users, and that's something we're super excited about changing going forward. Again, huge kudos to our teams in APAC and in Singapore, and it's a delight to be back in Singapore again. Thank you, everybody.